Advanced English Arabic Learning Session 75. Immunodeficiency means failure of the immune system to protect the body adequately. Burnside means a mustache in combination with whiskers on the cheeks but no beard on the chin. A linguistic flip-flop occurred. To earn a meager amount of money to buy sustenance for their families. A diamond hone is the ideal tool for sharpening in camp. An aneurysm is an abnormal swelling or bulge in the wall of a blood vessel such as an artery. Varicose veins affected by a condition causing the swelling and tortuous lengthening of veins. The people have enormous clout economically and politically. She indicted him of making improper advances. Poor rural economies turn to potatoes for sustenance. News that a mystery benefactor has chipped in money. Fraudsters have contacted benefactors directly, trying to extract more money. It would be remiss of me not to recognize the contributions of our benefactors. Regrettably, his relatives had neglected to provide him with any money. Perjury is a felony. The opportunities to grant bequests, or to leave legacies and gifts are preempted. Undaunted, local prosecutors decided to indict him for possession of drug paraphernalia. Felons are not only disqualified from holding public office, they can't vote. A thief was a felon if he had 2 previous convictions. The 3 main prongs of the new government's program. The origin of turtles and tortoises from ancestral reptiles is still unclear. The road adopts a tortuous course along the coast. Tortious liability is more often pursued than criminal proceedings. Women worked when the exigencies of the family economy demanded it. A turtle is a slow-moving reptile, enclosed in a scaly or leathery domed shell. It would be remiss of me not to pass on that information. He remains fundamentally isolated. He lacks the clout to fully assert himself. The film did not instill any sense of gratitude to God. He is grateful for endowing him with an indomitable spirit and an iron will. Though displaying no overt solicitude, the tavern owner seemed helpful. Marketing companies solicit you by phone based on your profile. We ought to, obviously, solicit the views on any major substantive issue. Profits have increased on the back of improved international sales. On the back of this agitation, the new law entrenched police powers. The company has achieved record profits on the back of cheap labor. After some initial skirmishes, the company managed to entrench its rule. A ridiculous and doomed attempt to solicit someone to commit a crime. To dismiss government and dissolve parliament and declare state of emergency. To raise questions about some of our most entrenched beliefs. The key habitats hosting threatened species are wetlands, followed by scrubland. This dish is clearly not for those whose stomachs are of a delicate disposition. Empty as a monk's promise, he screamed to the scrublands. Dish contains sheep innards such as lungs and hearts. A contract which forbade him to solicit its customers after leaving its service. The company which he had formed as a mere cloak or sham. An injunction requiring observance of the covenant. The court may lift the veil of incorporation where it is being used to conceal the nationality of the company. The corporate structure is being used as a facade or sham, to conceal the truth. Parking lot is an area where cars or other vehicles may be left temporarily. The company had by its acquiescence led the claimants to believe that. He denied that there had been any interference in the country's internal affairs. Atomic beams can act like light waves and exhibit all of the classic wave effects. The Council is trying to wear down the opposition by attrition. At least it exonerated them from their usual role in being unable to hold on to leads. The certificate of registration is conclusive evidence. Buying a company off the shelf avoids the administrative burden of registering a company. The landlord shall remedy the defects with all possible expedition. What government says will be palliatives. I applaud the government's social grant initiatives. A quorum of 100 attendees was required to pass amendments to their bylaws. The bylaw makes it illegal to drink in certain areas. The bylaws forbid playing ball in the public garden. Every calf born to date has been polled, cut the horns off. The polled variety now has its own register. An alteration may be void if the majority are not acting bona fide. Expulsion of director who had failed to account for funds. I am not so sanguine about local small operators. He is not connected with the company in any capacity. He sings as a nostalgic caress, his guitar is like flint grinding on flint. I do not condone some of the rapacious acts of Australian companies. I am complicit with my government. I do not condone the supply of arms to such regimes. The fans were complicit in this failure because we consoled ourselves too easily. I do not speak out against this nonchalant murder of innocents. Scholars have become complicit, facilitators instead of critics and creators. At the very least, he said, they were complicit in the victory of evil. People are generally happier after a light saunter. New memoir, an exquisitely poignant story of loss and steadfast love. The opposite of evaporation is condensation, where vapor changes to a liquid. Our eyes perceive different wavelengths of light as color. An earthquake, also known as a quake, tremor, or temblor, is the result of a sudden release of energy in the Earth's crust. The routine is a chore, but the result is spectacular. If Guy does not perceive himself as disabled, nobody else should. The military acted as arbiter of conflicts between political groups. It does not prohibit the use of ruses or stealthy tactics to kill enemy personnel. I'm not sure whether my resolve is strengthened or destroyed. After a further 2 months he has a relapse and dies a fortnight later. Perhaps he is taking revenge in a manner more stealthy than we can possibly comprehend. Quietly and stealthily, our fields are being turned into industrial factories. This is a very warped, although certainly expedient analysis. Gymnast is a person trained in or skilled in gymnastics. He's been pining with unrequited love. His intuition is correct about the unrequited bromance. The traditional Arab taboo against boasting about one's charitable efforts. Police forces are facing an uphill battle against the sophisticated method. The country is grappling with a major culture clash as migrants pour in at daily basis. She attacked those who had ridiculed her observation. He would ask her to babysit. She had babysat his son on 6 or 7 occasions. To disseminate corruption in the world. We obliterated and destroyed the world. Loans of very dubious credit quality. Plan to enable parents to juggle their career and family commitments. A conduit for conveying water to the power plant. The park will have a versatile hall to screen documentaries on energy rationalization. Vases that were cast from the same material and turned on a wood lathe. Veneer is made by placing a cut log on a giant lathe and then rotating it against a cutter. She rinsed off the lather and dried her hands. Wood turnery simply refers to the process of creating legs or spindles turned on a lathe. The prepared wool was put on a distaff to make it easier to spin. They often disguise their affiliation by wearing civilian clothes. They often carry arms covertly to infiltrate various places. He spent the bulk of his day-to-day sorting out the junk in the garage. The samples were intercepted while being transported by carrier pigeon to the testing laboratory. His musical instrument is versatile enough for most melodies. A highly versatile property that has been sympathetically restored and upgraded to exacting standards. The cast were outstanding, showing their dramatic versatility and prowess at every opportunity. When he dies, his wife is usually guaranteed a lump sum or payment of income for 5 years. The rebate is paid directly to the provider, or receive it in a lump sum at the end of the financial year. At retirement they can take the accumulated money as a lump sum or turn it into an annuity. Soup is versatile enough to be eaten at every meal. Successful comedy is notoriously difficult to anatomize. Hong Kong and Bangkok tend to be lumped together in travel brochures. They considered the first primroses as the herald of spring. After she left him, he went berserk, throwing things about the apartment. You will be entitled to a 20% rebate off each standard fare. Utilities across the country paid rebates to customers who retrofitted their lighting. A person is contagious for 7 days after symptoms appear. Many parents assume that any kind of stomach upset in a child is the result of a contagious illness. The real culprit is simple indigestion or constipation. Although rheumatic fever is not contagious, strep throat is. The confluence of the rivers was a naturally attractive sight. A director has, by virtue of his position, apparent authority to make contracts. It enshrines the past and captures images for posterity. It allowed minute food particles to pass into the lower respiratory tract. I had to suffer another 15 minutes of excruciating boredom. Stomata are minute pores in the surface of leaves through which water vapor. This change in balance caused her to stumble and erupt in a fit of giggles. Firing broadside after broadside at the crumbling bastions of public morality. The only written record are the minutes of the meeting. The secretary should minute the proceedings of each meeting. Auditors are able to requisition a general meeting to explain the circumstances of their resignation. Workers began industrial action and refused to unload a plane. An aerial photograph taken by a drone shows the vast dump sites. I'm bound to say that my entreaties did not fall on deaf ears. The only discomfort was sharing space with at least a couple of passengers bound for the same destination. There are team rules governing deportment on and off the field. Who was the madman that spawned this code of deportment? Since antiquity, rules for deportment have guided the behavior. May God rest the departed soul in peace and give strength to the bereaved families to bear the loss. Men bustle to and fro with clipboards, impatiently awaiting the departure of the fleet. A rowboat that is nearly swamped in the ship's wake. It was a departure in style for him. A forum on road haulage run by the Department of Public Enterprise. The department has rebuffed calls to criminalize those who refuse to obey the law. Passengers arriving and departing, jostling one another. I asked her to be my wife, and I was rebuffed in no uncertain terms. Ancient traditions and rituals tend to abound with precepts and injunctions. His family had disowned him because of his marriage. Sadly, only litigious processes guarantee the rights of all concerned. A psychotic moron is going to plagiarize me. Rebel brigades were formed to battle government forces. I worried my in-laws, a relative by marriage, would sue me for defamation. The student confessed he had plagiarized the work from a prominent writer. The end. Coming next. Session 76.